This episode is for every woman who's ever looked in the mirror before her period and thought, what is wrong with me? The anxiety, the mood swings, the bloating, the exhaustion, the feeling that your entire personality changes for 2 weeks every month. What if it isn't just PMS? What if your hormones, nervous system, sleep, stress, and daily habits are all working together to create the symptoms that you've been told are normal? Today, we're joined by integrative physician Dr. Alexia Soteropoulos to break down the real root causes of PMS and PMDD, the biggest mistakes women make when trying to fix them, and the simple changes that can dramatically improve how you feel month after month. You're not going to want to miss this one. Welcome to In Alignment. I'm Annie.
And I'm Marissa. You were meant to find this today, and we're so glad you're here.
Welcome to In Alignment, Dr. Alexia Soteropoulos.
Thank you for having me, Annie.
We are so excited to chat with you again. I know you've been on before and you're one of our favorite guests. You're just a wealth of knowledge. And what I appreciate about you the most is that you are an MD and a functional practitioner. So you really get it and you get to the root, and your clients that work with you have these incredible transformations, and you also tell it straight. So our episodes are always full of like the most tactical tips and takeaways. We're excited to have you on again. But I'd love to kick it off if you can just do the brief, intro to yourself, a little bit about your background, what you focus on with women. I'm sure there's a lot of women listening that would love to work with you as well. So just a quick overview on yourself, and then we'll dive into our topic for today.
Yeah, thank you, Annie. So I'm Dr. Alexia Soteropoulos. I have my MD from Tufts University School of Medicine and now work more as a functional and integrative health practitioner, as you said, really helping women find the root cause of their issues and also help them live a very aligned and holistic and balanced lifestyle. So one that is for them to feel their best selves throughout their life, from, whether they're cycling or in perimenopause or menopause, whether they're thinking about fertility or they have all of their different health struggles as well, really helping them get to their healthiest self and finding those root causes if they are struggling with symptoms that haven't been giving them answers for years. So I also on the side do some corporate wellness. I do keynote speaking and workshops, and then also have written a couple books. One of them is actually behind me right there. That's coming out. I'm co-authoring that book in October. Co-authoring that book with my mom. It's coming out in October. It's called Restoring Balance. It's all about women's health for all ages. And I'm really excited to share that as well. So I don't know when this podcast is coming out, but that'll be out in October.
Amazing. That is so exciting. Congratulations. That's a big deal, writing a book. I remember I talked to you in we got coffee in January maybe or December, and
Yes.
you're like just working on it. So it's so
Yeah.
exciting to hear.
Yeah. Yeah. I wrote a chapter in another one that's actually up there. And then this one is the book that was my mom and I have co-authored together. So that was the one I was talking about with you.
Amazing. And tell us high level, what are the main focus areas that you work with women on?
I work with women mostly on hormonal issues, gut-based issues, mood, energy, really a lot of focus on PMS, PMDD, endometriosis, fertility issues, and also especially proactive fertility. So those who are thinking about having kids in the next year or two, as well as women who are struggling with perimenopause symptoms, all through menopause, and also any other issue that they may be having, whether that is hormonally driven or not.
It's really crazy to me. I mean, I also struggled with hormonal issues. How many women struggle with them, and how interconnected your hormones, your metabolism, your thyroid, your adrenal glands, your stress levels, your gut health, anxiety, depression, insomnia, irritability, mood swings, it is all connected. When I was kind of at my lowest point in, 2022, 2023, I had an autoimmune disease, I had gut issues, I had skin issues, eczema and dermatitis. I had literally no period, or a 70-day cycle that had me on the floor in pain. I had weight gain, I had SIBO, I had inflammation, I had anxiety. It is so interconnected. And I think what is really overwhelming too is that so many women feel panicked because of the state of how bad they feel, and they don't know where to start. And they go online on Instagram and it's do this strength training or take this supplement. And it's but what is the answer underneath it all? So I guess, we're going to dive into PMS and PMDD today, but I want to start with that kind of lead-in question of, when women feel so bad in so many ways, what are your first steps to help get to what could potentially be the root to start sorting out and solving for all of those other puzzle pieces?
Yeah, it's so hard because when someone's struggling with all those different things that you mentioned, they think, first of all, that it's all separate issues. So if they went to their traditional doctor, they list their symptoms, they list all the problems, they'd say, okay, you need to go see an endocrinologist or a dermatologist or a gastroenterologist or all these different specialties who are not communicating, not realizing or really paying attention to the fact that they might have some interconnected root causes. A lot of them driven in lifestyle. But even beyond that, just not realizing that your gut might be impacting your skin, might be impacting your immune system, and all of them might be communicating. So, first of all, years in the traditional system where they're not getting answers and kind of just going between specialists and kind of snowballing issues. But when they come to me, first I do a very deep intake. So I'm really understanding their story, kind of trying to put those puzzle pieces together and not treating them as isolated issues, but really combining them and understanding what might be connecting and underlying them, then also really going off of their goals and their priorities. So thinking, where do they want to prioritize? What are certain aspects of their lifestyle that they care about that we want to focus on, or ones where we want to improve or make changes? And then also, based on anything we find in functional lab testing, we can also prioritize based on what needs more attention first, whether that is the gut or whether that is something with their nervous system, because that really governs a lot of how you function in the rest of your body. So if your nervous system is wired all day long, your gut's not going to heal. Your skin won't heal. Your autoimmune symptoms won't heal either. So there are certain things where it does need to be done in a methodical order versus trying to attack everything all at once. But it's still very individualized beyond that.
Totally. It is all interconnected. And I think often too, it is a certain subset of like lifestyle factors or even things that we're doing throughout our days, whether they're thoughts that we have or, things that we're doing on autopilot. Like for me, I had so many more endocrine disruptors and toxins in my medicine cabinet, in my cosmetics, in my shower, in my kitchen than I thought. Excuse me. I was eating way more sugar than I thought, which was throwing off my blood sugar. And like there's so many answers that exist within the construct of our days and how we're living that, and also the stories we tell ourselves of, I hate my job, I'm so miserable, I'm never gonna solve this, I feel so uncomfortable in my body, I'm never going to find the right relationship, whatever it may be, these like negative narratives that we run that are creating these stories and creating these stress responses. There are so many answers that exist within how we live and think in a day that are funneling up to create all of these issues that, as you said, are not separate issues. Sometimes we don't want to take the hard look at our lives, but so often we're often the contributors to a lot of this dysfunction.
Exactly. I know it's hard because when you do step back and realize, okay, there's a lot in my lifestyle driving it, you feel like it might be your fault, but it's not. It's also that we live in a society that has demands that we have to go to work and we have to provide for our families and we have to cook and do whatever it might be. We can't just sit and do nothing all day long. And so even though we see, oh, we're causing this, it's not ever to blame yourself. It's really just to step back and realize, where do you prioritize certain things? Where can you fit in things throughout that demanding day that the world demands of you, and add in more calmness and more safety throughout your day so that way you can start to heal those things that are going on when most of it is very much lifestyle driven.
Safety is a big one too. Your nervous system has to be in a calm state to heal. So interesting. Okay, well, today we're going to dive into PMS and PMDD. Let's chat about, ask the doctor, what is PMS and what is PMDD, and how are they not the same thing?
PMS is premenstrual syndrome. So when you have symptoms before your period, usually the week before, whether that's bloating or acne flares or mood symptoms that are a little bit more heightened, that cravings, that's PMS. When it's PMDD, so people think PMDD is a more severe form. It is to an extent, but it's actually completely different as well. It is a significant form of PMS where you are having more debilitating symptoms that actually interfere with your day to day life, your relationships, your ability to do certain things. And when it gets to that point, that's when we would call it PMDD. So again, not like it is a more severe PMS, but we should treat it like a completely different entity as well. And that can have the similar symptoms, but way more severe. Also have more severe anxiety, depression symptoms, and it lasts generally around 2 weeks, or at least within the 2 weeks of the luteal phase, resolving around the first few days of the period, and significantly improved for the first 2 weeks of your cycle after your period comes as well. Um, and A lot of times people will know, or women will say that their relationships are harder during that time. They always feel like they want to break up with their boyfriend or their husband every month during that time. They want to quit their job. They don't want to do anything that they normally do those 2 weeks. And then the hard thing is then when those 2 weeks come back where they feel better, then they sit and regret. I said something bad during that time. I made decisions that I shouldn't have made, or I broke up with someone I really shouldn't have, or I quit a job, or whatever it might be. They maybe took the extremes, but a lot of times it's just more feelings of regret of I had that conversation. Isn't what I really meant. And then that cycle continues because then they get back into the luteal phase and they go, oh yeah, no, I still don't like that guy, or I still don't like what I'm doing here. And they get really upset. And then it's a cycle. And so not only is it debilitating for the 2 weeks, but then they're having mental struggle and turmoil for the 2 good weeks of the month. And so, unfortunately, it's just a vicious cycle where they keep snowballing into worse and worse relationships, anxiety, depression, and it's really debilitating beyond just what is a normal PMS type symptom. And let's not even think about just the mental aspect, but also physical. They have even potentially more severe bloating, more severe cravings, significant weight gain each month during that time. And so it's also hard on their self esteem. And a lot of women will look in the mirror and say they don't recognize themselves every single month. And that really weighs on them. And so it is something where a lot of women don't realize that they're struggling with that because they just think it's PMS. And I think it's just that's what it is. That's what being a woman is every month. But it's really not.
I have so many questions for you on this. Okay, so for somebody listening, what are the core distinctions between PMS and PMDD?
So it's hard to just say as a general, but if you work with someone who can diagnose you, then they can really tell you, okay, this is what it is, because you need to have the symptoms worsening for those 2 weeks. If you, for example, had anxiety and depression all month, that's not PMDD unless it was significantly worse or it was newer in the second half of your cycle. So you have to have a certain amount of symptoms during the second half of your cycle to be diagnosed with PMDD. And also another distinction is suicidal ideation is a big one. Not that we need to get into that right now, but that is a significant symptom that can occur a lot in the second half of the cycle and it completely goes away in the first half. And so that is a big one where a lot of women make suicidal gestures, like it seems like they're being dramatic. And so that is also distressing on the person because they know that that's not really them. They feel like someone else has taken over their body for the 2 weeks of the month. It's also distressing and difficult for those who are around you and see the comments you're making and potentially the gestures that you're doing and causing more strain in the relationships there. And so when it becomes dysfunctional for your day-to-day life is when you're really thinking about PMDD.
Okay, interesting. I have one question on this, a little bit more spiritual, and then I want to go into like the tactical root causes and what we can do about that. But I have heard some people say that in your luteal phase, when you're really sensitive, women are most connected to themselves. And sometimes you get nudges of like, like, I don't know if this relationship is right for me, or like this friend is like triggering me in this way, or something about this career doesn't feel right. And I think that there are two things that are happening here. Sometimes it is PMDD and they are not true thoughts. They're like invasive thoughts. It is anxiety. You are blowing things out of proportion. You are, I don't know, like you see the world in a very different way and it is not accurate. Then there's another camp where I've read some stuff that PMS, not PMDD, can connect you so deeply to your feelings and your intuition that some of those little like, I don't know if this is my forever partner, or like, I don't know how good this friend is making me feel, or there might be a career for me that isn't this. Like some of those thoughts that come up are actually like our intuition and our truth. And we can tap into them during the luteal phase because we're more sensitive and we're more connected to ourselves. I have struggled my whole life between I'm a very emotional person and I also used to really struggle with PMS, like really bad PMS. But I've struggled with self-trust of being like, is this my intuition or is this fear and anxiety? I want to ask you, is there any truth to PMS or even just being in your luteal phase? You get these nudges from your intuition that might be like, like this could be true. And then on the other side, PMDD, that could be like total exaggerations. worst case scenarios, invasive thoughts? And how do you distinguish?
It's hard to distinguish that. I do agree with you that I think that every month when you have that time in your luteal phase, that it does nudge you a little bit more towards what your true intuition and your real thoughts are about a person, a situation, whatever you're thinking about. And the PMDD clouds a little bit of that because it takes it to an extreme and then it resolves 2 weeks later that you go, "Oh, that was nothing." And so that extreme makes it hard to know and judge and trust yourself because you don't know what is reality. And like I said, that's where they feel like someone's taken over their body and they don't feel like they have control. And some people say they feel like someone has possessed their body and it's just kind of telling them what to say, and not necessarily actually telling them what to say, but they just feel like they're more impulsive. They're just not really themselves. And so it's hard to trust what their intuition is saying. They're questioning it themselves. They might be fighting it too. So I would say PMS for sure, I think is really more in alignment with that, where you can listen to your intuition more easily at that time. It still might feel difficult. And those nudges might give you a little more clues because if it's not a wholehearted yes all month long, maybe it is a no. But PMDD, unfortunately, is so dramatic to the people that are experiencing it that it's hard to even listen to. And so it's hard to distinguish. And I think you kind of have to get to a point where your symptoms aren't as severe to be able to then realize what is it trying to tell you, what are the whispers there. But if someone does act on something in their luteal phase, they shouldn't feel bad about it either, because maybe that is, they know themselves and they know, all right, this isn't right for me, and that's fine. But a lot of women will say that it's still too debilitating to even trust their own decisions at that phase in the month.
How I swear to God, writing it into the tactical stuff behind this is just so interesting to me because I have like I've really experienced this too. And sometimes when I read my journal entries, I actually don't have as I have so many questions for you because I want to know also how like the physical correlates with this. But I used to have way worse PMS than I do now. And my journal entries from those times are questioning my entire life. So, what are a few tips to emotionally regulate so we don't act on that impulse? Is it just simply the awareness of I'm in my luteal phase, any big decision waits until I start bleeding? Or are there like somatic or nervous system regulation tips that we can kind of shift into a better, more rational headspace during that shift? Our mission is simple to help women transform their lives by shifting the patterns that are keeping them stuck. Insight is powerful, but insight without action doesn't change your life. If you're navigating a breakup, anxiety, burnout, a career transition, grief, body image struggles, or you just have this feeling that you're meant for more, there's a version of you who you're ready to become, and we'd love to help you step into her. We do that in two ways through Shift. The first is through our one-on-one coaching, where we help you understand the patterns that have been running your life, build the skills to respond differently, and create the kind of lasting change that transforms your relationships, your career, your health, and the way you feel every day. The second is the Shift, our 21-day self-guided transformation program designed to help you change the emotional patterns beneath your health, relationships, career, and everyday life. Through daily lessons, guided somatic practices, journaling, and real life application, you'll learn the shift method and begin building new emotional patterns until they become your default. And if you're looking for ongoing support, our Shift membership launches this September. Through live coaching, guided practices, a supportive community, and a growing library of tools, you'll have everything you need to make emotional health something you practice, not just something you think about. Learn more at shiftinto.co.
It depends the person. So sometimes when people are struggling with it, they just don't know where to go from there. And so it might take time, and it might take working with a practitioner, working with a doctor, whoever it is, to figure out what is really underlying so that you can learn those techniques or figure out what works best for you. And everyone's different. And so some people, sitting and meditating gives them more stress during that time because they can't sit with their thoughts or they can't calm down and they just get agitated. Or breath work might activate them more too. Others, it might be that they just need to do something fun. They need to find joy in those 2 months or 2 weeks so that they can get through the time. And some, it might be journaling. It really depends. Everyone's so different. And I don't know if that even answers your question, but it's really finding techniques that work for you and work for each person, and helping with or having guidance from someone who can see you from the outside in and kind of give you validate you and have you understand what's going on. A lot of women don't realize they have PMDD. They just think they have PMS and it's what everyone experiences, and that's not true. And it's once they find out that they have PMDD, it's really that alone is very validating. And not that I like to label people with a diagnosis, or I think that we should all walk around with the label on our head of like, I have PMDD and that is how I live. And labeling that as all of our symptoms are just attributed to that. But it can be really validating, and that can lead to a lot of healing in and of itself. So just even the awareness is important.
Yeah. What is the root cause of I want to talk about both PMS and PMDD, but what drives these two? Is conditions the right word? Yeah. What is like the driver most often of these?
So there's still a lot of research happening with PMS and PMDD, and there's not a lot actually coming at the moment, but there is a little bit more where they're trying to figure out what is actually causing PMDD, and they don't really know yet. It may be the hormones themselves. It may also be your reaction to the change in hormones. And so specifically with PMDD, well, in general, in our cycle, you have progesterone and estrogen rising, but then progesterone really drops in the luteal phase. And so it is potentially the case that that drop in progesterone is what is impacting people and or the change, the rise and the drop. And so women are very sensitive to the changes in the hormones and not just the hormone levels themselves. So that's one theory. Another one is also just that in your luteal phase, you're supposed to have a lot of progesterone, and that's a very calming hormone. And so a lot of women think, well, if I'm supposed to be calm in this with a lot of progesterone, why am I not calm during my luteal phase? And that's confusing, but it might be that you don't have enough. You may not be ovulating consistently. You may just not be producing enough progesterone because you have so much stress that your cortisol is dysregulated, and that really ties to how your progesterone is produced. So, if you don't have enough progesterone in the second half of your cycle, you're going to feel irritable. You're going to feel all those symptoms and the lack of calm that progesterone usually provides. So, the extremes with the PMDD, probably the changes in the hormones, the way that your body is, or not having enough. PMS, if it's very light symptoms and it's more that you notice some changes premenstrually, but it's not really debilitating, not really impacting you, that's physiological. You are having hormonal changes. You are not supposed to feel the same every day as women. Men feel the same or should feel the same in theory every single day. They live on a 24-hour cycle. Women live on a roughly 28-day cycle. So, first half you have more energy. In the second half, think about it, it's like nighttime. You don't have as much energy. You are a little more irritable. You might have a little more water retention. But if it is not significant and it's not really debilitating, again, that might be a little bit more physiological. It's actually what our bodies were think about it in a sense where your body's preparing for pregnancy. That didn't occur. But what is it doing? It's coming inward. And so being less social or being less outgoing or happy or things like that, not to an extreme extent, but that is kind of what our bodies are physiologically doing with the changes in the hormones. It's once it gets to the point that we're living in a high stress environment and we're always on a go, go, go state every single day of the month that our bodies are now fighting against that. They want to kind of come inward and slow down and eat more nourishing food and work out less and find joy in certain things. But we are doing the same work, we're doing the same movement, we're doing the same eating all month long, pushing ourselves past the exhaustion when we should have more grace, especially in the second half. And so that mismatch is, I think, what causes a lot of those symptoms.
It's really interesting. The physical symptoms of PMS, like breast tenderness, breakouts, headaches, insomnia, fatigue, are those always indications of a hormone imbalance, or are some of those just you could have very healthy, balanced hormones and experience some physical symptoms?
So all of those symptoms, for the most part, overlap with other issues. So it could be very much hormonally driven. And at the end of the day, unless I have a person in front of me, we did lab testing, and or I really understand their symptom picture, I wouldn't be able to say blanket, this is hormonal, this is not. So a lot of them are hormonally driven, but they also overlap with things that could be gut imbalances or other nervous system issues that are still hormonal in a sense, but it's not what we're thinking of as just estrogen and progesterone. It could also be very much cortisol, thyroid picture there, or it could be gut, it could be the immune system, a lack of lymphatic movement, and so detoxification. So think about our environmental toxins. It can lead to a backup into your system. lead to more inflammation. And so that inflammation drives other symptoms. So there is such an interconnection. And that's the thing. Our hormones also modulate a lot of these processes. And so we can't look at a woman and say, this is only hormonal or this is only gut.
Or
Brain fog could be a combination of all of those things. It could be your blood sugar isn't stable because you're not eating consistently. And so, therefore, you're having energy crashes and now you can't concentrate as well. And that's going to impact your cortisol, which will impact your thyroid and all of your other hormones. And then that might impact your gut as well. And so, we really need to think about how our bodies are so interconnected. And that's why at the beginning, when you mentioned all the different things that you were struggling with, women look at that and go, wow, I have so many problems. I have a gut issue, I have a hormone issue, I have mood, energy, whatever it is, really boils down to a lot of the same thing and the connection between them. And so once we kind of balance a lot of that out, everything else balances too. It doesn't need to be, we're looking at everything separately.
if a woman has really bad PMS or PMDD, are there things that we can let's start with PMDD. If you have a client with PMDD, patient with PMDD, can you, without medication, alleviate that symptom for them or experience?
In my experience, definitely. So I have several clients with PMDD who some are on medications and some are not. And that is 100% their choice. And a lot of them came to me on medication and said, my goal is to come off of this eventually, but I really want to work on this more
I
naturally.
want to ask quickly,
Yeah.
what medication would someone go on with PMDD? Is it
Yeah.
like a
It's
mental
an
health?
usually they're on an SSRI or birth control, but typically an SSRI.
Interesting.
Yeah. It
Yeah.
depends. I mean, they could be on a different, like they could be on like a different psych med, but usually they are put on an SSRI. They can be put on an SSRI the second half of their cycle only or all month. And it's really a personal choice or talking to their provider. The clients I work with, I have, a couple that have done just the second half or some that have done the whole month. But I do work with a lot of women who are not on any medication because that's not what they want. And there's a lot of hope for managing and working on the symptoms very much holistically, naturally, lifestyle based. And it's not just managing, I should say. That medication is managing their symptom. It's really getting to the root, figuring out the lifestyle factors that are driving a lot of the symptoms, working on the hormonal dysfunction that if there is something present or anything else that's underlying. And once we work on that and they make those changes, I've seen dramatic change within a month. And so, literally from one cycle to another, with the changes we made, significant benefits and improvement in PMDD symptoms.
That's amazing. Okay, let's walk through the lifestyle changes because this is tactical and it's really hopeful and exciting. So, if and I guess also to when I ask this question, are the lifestyle changes for PMDD the same ones that we would make if we had really bad PMS?
I would generally say yes.
Okay.
So, I would look at them as similar in terms of what we would do to work on the lifestyle factors because they're both supportive. Thinking about what is supportive for the cycle, what is supportive for the nervous system is going to support both PMS and PMD.
Amazing. Let's talk about it. I want to dive into this. This is exciting.
So, one of the bigger things is really thinking about cycle syncing. And not, I know that cycle syncing is a buzz term, but really just how are you living every week of your month in a different way that is supportive to your body and not doing the same thing every day. And that doesn't mean you have to also be rigid with that. I don't want at the core of this is you really want to provide safety to your body. And so if you're overdoing and pushing and trying to be perfect with anything I'm saying, that is the opposite. That's pushing against that feeling of safety and causing more stress. So first is just at least thinking about that. But second is where are in each week of the month, can you add in something that is supportive to your body? So, in the second half, the luteal phase, not doing over intense exercises, not doing over intense biohacking things like cold plunging. I had one client cold plunging and sprinting every single day of the month. And that was not supportive for her body. Her hormones were tanked. She felt awful. She felt anxious most of the month, but really heightened the second half of the month. And so once we dialed back the cold plunging, we dialed back the sprinting in the second half of her cycle, she was still able to do that in the first half. A lot of those symptoms improved. Another one is fasting. So intermittent fasting has become a big thing over the past few years. Unfortunately, a lot of the research has been done on men. And so they can get away with the intermittent fasting. The benefits are there for them. I can see that. Postmenopausal women, to an extent, can also get away with fasting occasionally. But those with the cycle, the first half of the cycle, you could probably get away with a little more intermittent fasting. But the second half, that is causing too much stress on your body. Your body's going to think, oh, I'm in starvation mode. I'm going to hold on to weight. I'm going to hold on to more inflammation that you see. And then, first of all, that's a vicious cycle within your own self esteem. But second, that is going to lead to more cortisol disruption, blood sugar instability, and it's just a roller coaster from there. And so, thinking about what are ways to add in more nutrients and more grounding foods, but also stable food the second half of the cycle so that your body feels that sense of safety, just at least from the food and the minimal exercise, vigorous exercise from there as well. So, in terms of eating less and moving more, where people think, "Oh, I gained weight this month, so I'm going to try that." That's going to backfire for women with PMS and PMDD because they're just going to fuel that stress and that nervous system disruption.
So
So those are
most is bringing down stress, leveling out the nervous system. I want to talk about diet, caffeine, and sleep.
yeah. So for caffeine, I will say having caffeine on an empty stomach is definitely a no-no for someone with PMS and PMDD. So many women, the first thing they do is drink coffee. And I try to not be too strict on it, at least in the first half of the cycle, but really you should be having something with protein or something at least a little robust before having your caffeine for a couple of reasons. One, you want to delay the caffeine as long as you can. You have that natural cortisol, which in theory, unless it's a little disruptive for you and your nervous system is dysregulated. But typically, your cortisol is highest in the morning. And so you want to ride that out. Then add the caffeine later rather than just spiking it even further. So that's number one. But two, adding the caffeine to that cortisol spike disrupts your blood sugar and you haven't even eaten yet. And so the benefits of fasting, people think, is so that your blood sugar is more stable. But what actually happens is if you have caffeine, your blood sugar is already on a roller coaster and it didn't even consume any glucose. So you're not getting those benefits of not having any food when you disrupt that by having coffee on an empty stomach. And then caffeine in general throughout the day, we do want to minimize it the second half of the cycle so that you are having a little more stability in terms of that energy. Things like matcha, green tea, thinking about more stable caffeine sources are great. Also have other benefits rather than just having tons of coffee every day, especially in the luteal phase. But overdoing caffeine is definitely something that you want to minimize.
Alcohol.
But yeah. Oh, I also sleep.
No, I'll get sleep and diet, but I want to talk about alcohol first because
Okay.
that's the drink category. What are
Yes.
your thoughts on alcohol, especially with PMS and PMDD?
Comes to personal alcohol, for example, I do drink alcohol in moderation. I know some people will say no drink is good at all. And I do understand that. But at the same time, there is a social aspect. And so whether you are going out having one drink or even if you're just drinking a mocktail, having that social aspect is important for our joy, for our nervous system, and all of the other things we've been talking about. But alcohol does disrupt sleep. It can tank your HRV in one night. Notice that if you wear any wearable and you drink, let's just see how your HRV, your resting heart rate responds to that. Your body within one day of a drink does notice the difference. Does lead to some low grade inflammation as well. And so that does all impact your PMS and PMDD symptoms. So if you are very sensitive and have PMS or PMDD, I would say to definitely minimize the alcohol, especially in the luteal phase. Again, not saying to minimize being social and having fun, but there are other options, especially now. There are so many ways to enjoy drink without alcohol.
Totally. Super helpful. And it messes with your recovery, which is like super important in your
Yes.
real phase. Okay, let's get to the importance of sleep.
Yeah.
How much
So
do we need also?
So women really do need an extra hour of sleep than men. And in the luteal phase, that can go up to 90 minutes extra than men do. So if you are going to bed and waking up at the same time as your partner, whoever, if you have one, and they are getting up and you're saying, oh, I have to get up too, know that your energy will inadvertently be lower. Your recovery will be less than theirs because you do actually need an extra hour, hour and a half of sleep. And so that's something to think about and give yourself a little more grace with that. Because women do feel lazy. They're saying, well, I can't sleep this much. I have things to do. Know that the sleep you're getting is more important than the majority of things that you're trying to do during the day. I would rather you sleep an extra hour than wake up at 5 a.m. to get in a workout, especially in the luteal phase. Because sleep is that important. It really should be your number one priority for your recovery, for your rest, for knowing that it will improve your symptoms and your nervous system as well. And then get your movement in other ways throughout the day if you don't have time for a dedicated workout. Take a walking meeting, walk around the block, park further, just take the stairs, especially in the luteal phase. That's where I'd want you to prioritize is get your sleep and then have gentle movement throughout the day if you're not able to dedicate a time to work out. That is so important.
That's a really good point. Like, there's such little, like, taking one call walking can be like 5,000 steps. Like,
Mhm.
there's really good ways to parking further at the grocery store, taking the stairs, all of those things. I know we're not like all about numbers and biohacking, but I do think that tracking your steps can hold you accountable to get enough movement in. Is there like a rough amount of steps that you see have a real positive impact on women, just in terms of like getting enough movement in during the day?
In terms of actual studies that show all-cause mortality, 8,000 is around that point where after 8, the risk of all-cause mortality kind of stays the same. So I always try to make the goal around 7 to 8,000 for women. I mean, if you can go over 10, I know that you do, that's great. But a lot of times when you make a 10,000 step goal, especially if someone's used to walking like 3, 4,000, it's really hard to hit. And so then they'll hit it for a week and then they stop and then they feel like they didn't really achieve anything because now they haven't hit 10. And so it's really hard to be consistent because they are seeing that they're not hitting that goal. So that's why I try to lower that goal to 7 or 8,000 so that they feel it's attainable. And that is truly the point where, in terms of studies, we've seen a lot of benefit. Now, the benefit beyond that, there are still more, of course. There's more caloric burn. There's still potentially some more nervous system, brain function, things like that, that are important past 7 or 8,000 steps. But at a minimum, if you can get there, you're already 90% of the way where I'd want you to be. And then you can keep building once you kind of establish that habit. It's really about making the habits that work for you work rather than making goals so unattainable that you can't hit them and be sustainable for life.
It's a really good point. Is there a benefit, and then we'll go on a diet, but is there a benefit to when you walk? Like, is it first thing in the morning? Is it better at night, post meal?
Post meals has the best benefit for multiple reasons. There are studies that show it just has benefits for many things after once it's specifically timed after meals, but specifically for me, I like it for digestive purposes, blood sugar regulation, and a lot of women who come to me have issues with both. So I like to suggest after meals because they're getting that digestive benefit as well as the blood sugar stability, that blunting of that blood sugar spike after the meal, and also a time where then they're dedicated to walking because they're saying, okay, I had my meal, now I'm going to walk for 10 minutes, and they get those pockets of movement throughout the day. And that separated, spaced out movement is also really beneficial too.
And there's also a huge mood impact. Like, I find I love to go to a sugary snack when I'm stressed or low energy or in a bad mood. And if I say, nope, I'm going to go outside and just, walk in silence and appreciate the nature or listen to a really good song, I come in with like an entirely different view of the world. So it's amazing for like mental health and mood and just giving, it's like, it's such a hit of dopamine and energy. It's amazing.
Yes. Movement does really create energy. And so I know a lot of people say, well, I'm too tired to move. But if you're able to just build up a little bit, actually moving makes more ATP, which is what powers the energy in our body and gives us more energy. So movement really creates energy and and in addition to mood benefits as well.
Would you recommend that if somebody is like flat out exhausted, in their luteal phase, like really doesn't want to do anything, would you say, push yourself enough to go for a walk? Or would you say like literally do nothing and lie on the couch?
It's tough. I think that you do really the biggest thing here is you really want to listen to your body and listen to where is your energy at that day. And so if one day you wake up and you really can't move in the luteal phase, listen to that and rest. And maybe by resting, because a lot of women don't give themselves permission to do that, they will feel better. Mood wise, they'll have more motivation, maybe so that tomorrow they move or later in the day, even. It's really about giving yourself grace, especially when you're struggling with so many symptoms. It's not about pushing harder. It is just really about working with your body and not against it. So that's why I don't want it to be like a regimen of anything I say here, you should follow it to a T. It should be, okay, I should be mindful of these different cycle phases and listen to my body and be more mindful of the movement I'm doing, the food I'm eating. At the same time, if it was 2 weeks of not moving, that might not be beneficial. So I would definitely still try to have a goal of at least gentle movement most days so that you can improve your energy, improve your mood, and kind of keep things flowing and moving within your body.
Amazing. I love that. You have such a balanced approach, which I appreciate. And I also find that when you give yourself more grace and compassion, the inverse almost happens. You're actually usually more likely to then go and do the things that make you feel good. But when you're
Yes.
like, I have to go to the gym, it's so much easier to just like build resentment and hate it. So I think that your approach is just really encouraging and long term, it leads to more sustainable, healthy habits.
Thank you. Yeah. It's language. A big thing of it is the language of how you're talking about what you have to do or that you can't do. And giving yourself permission just softens, or just the way you speak about it just softens the way that you think about it and you're not pushing against something.
We can create the most powerful narratives in our head. It's unbelievable. Okay, the last bucket is diet. And, PMS, PMDD specifically, how can we mitigate or lessen these symptoms through how we eat and nurture ourselves?
So first, I'm going to start with some vitamins and nutrients that are really important for PMS and PMDD. So that's magnesium, B vitamins, and omega 3s. And so you can get that in supplementation, but you can also get a lot of that in food, especially the omega 3s. You can think about fish, nuts, seeds, certain things that are rich in omega 3s. B vitamins and magnesium are also in some plant foods and some animal based foods. Though a lot of times, all three of those, we're not getting a lot of those in the diet. So we do have to, in addition, supplement with those. And those are really foundational and can make a big difference with PMS and PMDD symptoms because if we don't have enough nutrients, we're not having enough building blocks, we're just draining our bodies. Another thing is they're especially omega 3s are very anti inflammatory. So, really grounding your diet in an anti inflammatory way is going to be very important. So, minimizing the sugar that you said, we don't realize sometimes how much sugar we're eating. And I'm not saying you can't have fruit or natural sugars, it's just the amount that people are not realizing are in packaged foods, or it's a lot of girls are even drinking soda. And even if they're drinking diet soda, there's other artificial sweeteners in there that are really disruptive to the system. They're more inflammatory. And so just thinking about that as well, but really making sure you're getting enough protein and vegetables and fiber and healthy fats and also really good carbs, like really balancing and rounding out your meals. It's not about one macro over another. Like last year was the protein craze and they say this year's gonna be fiber. It's not about one type of food or another. It's really balancing it out each meal that you're eating because each one is going to provide you different benefits. And especially in your luteal phase, adding in more complex carbs is really supportive for the nervous system. So you can have a little more carbs there so that you can really soothe your nervous system and provide you more of that calming benefit where women are thinking, I got to cut carbs because I'm inflamed. No, think about what are some things that we can do diet wise to add more nutrients. It's not really about as much taking things out as it is adding in again the nutrients. Again, minimizing sugar, alcohol, very ultra processed foods, but within that, a balanced approach so that you're still enjoying because the joy that you have with food is also very important to your nervous system and to how you'll feel.
It's also unbelievable how much is in what we think are healthy foods. Like, sometimes, I mean, I got certified in functional nutrition a few years ago, so, I really, know what a whole food is and what's in it, but I always think to people who, don't have your background or don't have a certification in this or haven't been through the trenches of it themselves, that they literally know how to read a food label frontwards and backwards. Sometimes there is so much that we can clean up even when we think our diet is really healthy. Like in vanilla Greek yogurt, the first ingredient is usually sugar. In electrolyte packets, there can be fructose and glucose and added sugars. Like if you're pouring one of those into your drink every day, you are balming your body with inflammatory ingredients. in flavored coffee, even that you buy at the grocery store, natural flavored almond milks with added sugar and gums and emulsifiers, protein powders, protein bars, protein Greek yogurt, animal protein that isn't grass fed and full of hormones and antibiotics. Like, we can be eating healthy and consuming an entire day of crazy inflammatory ingredients. So I think that, like, truly understanding what is in your food can make, like, more of an impact than you can even imagine. And I will also say, because I know you have ice cream every night, I love my sweets and ice cream too. If the majority of your diet, when you go to the grocery store, you are buying organic, grass fed, local if possible ground meat, you are buying organic Greek yogurt with no added flavorings and ingredients, your coffee is organic and mold free, then your baseline is so much better that you can enjoy the ice cream. But if your baseline is like here of these like healthy foods that are actually driving inflammation and chaos in your body, then you have the ice cream, then you have the sweet treat. You're like up here in inflammation. So I don't know. I feel like it's an important call out because I have so many friends that are like, I eat so healthy. And I'm like, no, you don't.
I know I unfortunately do a lot of audits on people's diets and they'll say, "Oh, I eat a really healthy, balanced diet." And I look and it's protein bars for breakfast. I don't want to name the brand of the yogurt that people eat, but I know it every single time. All my clients eat it because it has more protein, less, and there's no sugar, but it's sweetened with aspartame and sweetened with all these other things, and tons of filler and ingredients that we don't want in there. And then they're having, maybe some carrot sticks with a sandwich, and then they're having dinner, which is just like, you know, rice and chicken. And so they're thinking, well, I'm eating really balanced, but there's not a lot of vegetables and fruit in there. So you're not getting all the antioxidants, the anti inflammatory ingredients, the fiber, all of that. You're not getting quality protein because they're not thinking about grass fed, grass finished, pasture raised, whatever, wild caught fish. They're not thinking about that. And then they're eating a lot of processed foods that, again, seemingly look healthy because it says protein on it. And that's the problem with that protein craze was people see a label and they go, this is healthy. And really just, we need to break it down back to the basics. Like you said, like minimal ingredient Greek yogurt should not have anything else in it other than basically milk and cultures.
Wait. Alexia, you are Greek. Have you been to Sophia's Greek Pantry? Have you tried that Greek yogurt?
I've heard it's really good. I actually
You haven't tried that?
No, I personally eat all sheep yogurt, so I actually rarely get any Greek yogurt anymore. My husband does, and so I will have to go get him
I'm
some.
gonna bring that to you next time I see you. It's also all organic from a farm in Maine. I mean, Vermont. It is, I mean, you're Greek, so you're gonna
I've
appreciate
heard
this.
it's really
As your
good.
husband, you guys are gonna it's so good. It's so good.
I do eat it occasionally, but the majority of what I eat is sheep yogurt because it is easier to digest for some people, but which is ironic because I do eat cow's milk ice cream. But for me, it's a balance and I choose which is what I consume. But yeah, I definitely want to try that one. But that's the point is we're thinking about the quality of the food you're eating too. And it's not just the macros and, the quantity. It's really the quality makes such a difference in terms of what you're putting in, the cellular building blocks you are giving your body. And then you, like you said, think about your body as a rain barrel and you're putting in all of the stuff in it. And if you're putting in more chemicals and more fillers and ingredients, then your body is going to start overflowing when you add in that sweet treat or you add in the drink of alcohol. And so if your body has a more empty rain barrel where it has the capacity to hold more of the extra things and the environmental toxicities and the products that you use and even the stressors in life, your body has more internal resilience to deal with it. And so then a lot of those symptoms resolve. But if your body is so overloaded, and a lot of it starts with what we put in our mouths, we can't handle it.
It is such a good point because I think so much of the intention behind taking care of ourselves is building capacity and resilience to handle an ice cream, a drink of alcohol, a life stressor, career change, a breakup, whatever it may be. The way that we take care of ourselves, from our sleep to our movement to our diet to the stories that we tell ourselves, literally build our capacity to deal with stress. So I love the way that you articulated that. A quick question on, what are your thoughts on dairy and gluten with PMS and PMDD? Is that like person specific or are they inherently inflammatory no matter how you cut it?
In theory, they're more inflammatory no matter how you cut it. However, I do still think it's person dependent. I think there's benefits to quality dairy and quality things like sourdough bread, very minimal ingredient. However, if you have certain other conditions, first of all, if you're celiac, that's a different story. But even if you have high thyroid antibodies, that would be one where you'd want to think about reducing your gluten and dairy intake. But if you don't have anything like that, you're not having significant symptoms, and you other than your PMS or PMDD, I should say, that might be something where maybe you cycle through that and you minimize during the luteal phase and see how you feel. And if people notice benefit, then it is probably beneficial for them to minimize. If they don't and they feel good having it and it brings them joy, especially, then that's okay as well. Again, it's so person specific.
So fair. Okay, last question. Any lab testing that if we are suspecting that we might have, PMS to the point that we really want to kind of deal with it and get a handle on it, or PMDD, are there any lab tests that we could ask for?
So I do a full hormone panel with all the women who come to me with PMS or PMDD. So we're looking not just at estrogen and progesterone and testosterone and DHA, but really salivary cortisol is the biggest one where if I even had to just skip estrogen, progesterone, I really do want to see salivary cortisol for those women because their nervous systems are usually not optimally balanced with their cortisol output. So I want to see how it is morning, midday, mid afternoon, evening. It should be rising and falling. And usually it's some other disruption where, it might be higher in the evening, might be all high all day long, or maybe it's really low and they're burnt out. Whatever it is, usually I have not found one woman with PMS or PMDD where there is not a dysregulated cortisol rhythm. And so that's where I really want to look at that. And then also looking at thyroid, at least 4 markers there, not just TSH.
I know.
That's a big one where people say, "My thyroid's normal, my doctor ran my TSH," and then they look and they have low T3, they have high TPO antibodies, and they're like, "Oh, no wonder I don't feel well." So that's a big one. And then looking at things like your hemoglobin A1C, fasting insulin even, things for your blood sugar, and then, vitamin D, because there is a lot of vitamin D deficiency as well of PMS and PMDD, and so really wanting to make sure that that is in check. So looking at all the deficiencies there as well, because if you're deficient in something like vitamin D, that is so easy to add in and fix, where that doesn't need to be a contributing factor to your energy and mood. And then looking at all your hormones in a more holistic picture so we can see how are they interacting. In addition to other things like other nutrients and gut, but if I were to start anywhere, it would definitely be a more comprehensive hormone panel. And then, if you have low progesterone, you can do certain things lifestyle wise. You can add in certain herbs as well, like vitex berry or chaste tree, and certain other ingredients that are really known to help progesterone support and actually are scientifically studied to show that they are just as effective as SSRIs for PMDD.
What?
So
Vitex
that
and gooseberry?
yeah, well, they're the same thing. There's just 2 different words or 2 different names, same ingredient. It has been shown to have the same effect for PMDD as an SSRI, and so that is a big one where when women say, "I don't wanna be on an SSRI," and they try that, they can get I've seen significant relief.
That is crazy. Isn't Vitex, doesn't that help people ovulate?
It can, yeah, so it helps progesterone support. It also does help with estrogen as well. So, I usually recommend at least just taking it during the luteal phase, but having a robust luteal phase can help you ovulate the next cycle as well.
Mm.
So, it is kind of like a cyclical factor that it will help you ovulate, which then helps progesterone support, and it keeps going. So, yeah, it definitely has a lot of benefits.
Is it a red flag if you skip ovulation?
Yes. Well, most women will not ovulate every single month all year long. But if you're consistently not ovulating every single month, then there's something we want to look deeper into. And so people will say, "Oh, I'm ovulating because I had an LH strip and that spiked." That does not guarantee ovulation. That just means that LH is spiking. You need to check cervical mucus. You need to check your temperature and see if your basal body temperature has stayed risen the whole month. There's also some other at-home hormonal tests you can do, but usually I just have people check their temperature and they'll see that they weren't actually even ovulating. And so especially when you're thinking about fertility, they say, "Well, I have my LH strips and I'm having consistent cycles." They may not actually even be ovulating
You
every
can get
month.
a period and not ovulate?
Hmm. Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Think about it also, the birth control pill, it's similar idea. You're not ovulating, but you're having that withdrawal bleed. So there's definitely you could not be ovulating.
Hmm.
But
I don't wanna let you go because I could use questions literally all day. You're so fantastic because you're so smart, but you're so balanced. So it's like I can see why you have such success working with your clients because you have such an approachable, nurturing, encouraging approach that is grounded in lifestyle. Whereas so many, MDs, not that I know you're an MD and I appreciate that about you, but like I went to so many doctors, like or OBGYN, my primary, and they, for my PMS, they're just, oh, here's an SSRI. They didn't even ask how correlated it was with my cycle. So I just appreciate your, such a scientific, rooted in the science and in studies approach to this, but your lifestyle first. And you're also manageable. You're not saying like overhaul your lifestyle, do everything tomorrow. It is such a kind of like a gentle approach, which I think is what actually makes these things stick and helps people be consistent over time, which is where you see the best results. So I really, really love your approach to everything. Again, I could ask you a million more questions, but I will let you go. I know we're way over time. Where can everybody find you? And are you taking, do you call them patients or clients? Okay. And are you taking new clients? And if so, how can women reach out to you and find you?
so the best way to reach out to me would be on my website, anasomawellness.com. There you can book a discovery call with me for free. And if you would like to become a new client, if you'd like to learn more about the practice, that is a great way to start. You can also email me. My info's on there. I'm on Instagram at Anasoma Integrative Wellness. And then I'm also on LinkedIn personally. And I do post some health content there as well.
Amazing. Well, thank you, Alexia. You are a wealth of knowledge, and we so appreciate you coming on. And we will talk to you again soon.
Thanks so much for having me.
Bye.
If something in today's conversation resonated with you, take a moment to pause and notice where it's sitting within you.
Living in alignment is not about fixing yourself or becoming someone new. It's about listening, trusting, and slowly coming home to who you already are.
Thank you for spending this time with us and for being part of this community.
If you enjoyed this episode, you can subscribe, leave a review, or share it with someone who might resonate with it too. See you next time.